dramas are incomplete forms of the act of devotion. So, act of devotion, extremely evolutionary. That is tenderest love coupled with service. And ultimately with dramas, that's what we're aiming for, is to be in a state of devotion all the time. Every minute, every breath is an act of devotion. Is how can I serve you better? How can I serve you better? How can I serve you better? And it is the antenna of the universe folding back into infinite being, just saying, how can I serve you better? How can I serve you better? In that state of devotion, we have to go beyond a generalized perception of what it means to serve, because it's very easy for people to get caught in the idea that service means sacrifice. When the heart is flowing with abundance of love, then whatever the action step is taken is not sacrifice. It's joy. And if time and energy are required in that act of service, then that brings in just a little bit of, I'm using my time and energy, but it's coupled with all the fullness of love, and then you get the right mix of sweetness and challenge to perpetuate life forward into the next level. So the belief that service means sacrifice, or that the more I suffer, the more service I am providing. This is not to discount the suffering of the ages, because we know that ancestors and even ourselves in our own life have gone through very challenging times. Those times were also service. Those times were also useful to the creation. Right now what's happening is that swirling rick is still with us, and what it's doing is it's promoting ripples of very concentrated understanding that are going through this awake system, this matrix of life, which is wide awake and allowing for the flow of truth. And basically, our webinar, everyone watching, everyone who will be watching, are functioning together as a unified wholeness, which is acting as a great healing structure for creation, for our world, for our world. Yesterday, at the end of the webinar, we came across the piece of information, useful information, that a lot of the really problem difficulties that we faced in our world, like wars, like the kind of darknesses and difficulties that have given rise to the world not being blissful, life-supporting, and evolutionary for everyone, have come as a result of a lack of coordination between the entire belief system structures of Earth and humanity, and life as it exists in simultaneous parallel universes, and life as it exists in many other places of our universe that are at completely different levels of experience and perception. What that means is us being out of tune with ourselves, because at the celestial level of self, you encompass all that. All that belongs to you. All those simultaneous parallel universes, all those beings whose bodies look completely different from ours, who don't even have physical structures, or who look like funny little, worms or something, whatever. There are lots of different beings in creation, four-headed elephants or whatever. They all belong to the self. They all belong to the self. Anything we conceive, anything we know, anything we can perceive, anything we can comprehend is still finding its source in being. And we are the antennas of being. So it finds its source in our own being. And there has been a lack of coordination. And we're finally, thank you everyone. It's very powerful, this group. Our group today is very powerful. What's happening is we're creating a larger antenna of our collective. I'm realizing this sort of swirling, it's moving. It's moving, but it's very, very, very orderly sacred geometrical form, which is comprised of what appears to be the collective of the subtle levels of our physiologies working together in union, in tandem, is continuing to fold back into the source of creation. And as it continues to fold back into the source of creation, it is reflecting in both directions at the same time. So it's both a transmitter and a receiver. Transmitter and receiver. And is transmitting grace. That is the underlying structure, grace. Grace means alignment with everything in creation. Grace means purest form of being. Synchrony. So there's a synchronization that's taking place. Oh, this is good. It appears that as this synchrony is taking place, and of course everything keeps offering back, so more downloads coming in. Evidently, there are many places in creation, very, very high frequency locations. Being is existing in those locations in a very coherent, very pure, very life-supporting manner, where this value of collective coordination is standard. Okay, so this value of collective coordination is now being integrated for everybody in the group, everybody in our webinar, at many different levels of the being. For one thing, for example, we've had our ancestors, and I talked earlier about how they had their belief systems and we had our belief systems, and we need to integrate. We can there's a law of nature, and you are integrating this law of nature here at the spirit level of the being. This is the level of the physiology where we really come to understand in depth the way we interface with laws of nature and utilize, we are laws of nature at the spirit level of being. So this law of nature of having this beautiful, orderly, coherent, holistic function of self. And I'm just watching out in the group how it's a process of self-communication, how it's communicating through us to us. And it works at the molecular level so that we have an integration of ancestral function. This could only happen because everyone in the group today is just such a powerhouse. We have a powerhouse group. The transformation for the ancestors is extremely beautiful, and what's happening for them is an upgrade for hearts. And we did a lot of work on the heart yesterday, so you can go back and check that out from yesterday's recording. But the important thing to note here is that for the ancestors, they are receiving that healing for their hearts. So the transformation that's taking place, and this is a physical transformation that involves an increase of the increase for the capacity to function intelligently for the heart. We think of our brains as being intelligent, right? Higher thinking, higher moral reasoning. But the heart has an intelligence all its own, which is every bit as powerful and is the integrative structure. The heart area, heart chakra, ability to love and feel, is the integrative structure between the intelligence of our minds and the intelligence of being. So in order for the antennas to become more efficient reflections of being, the heart needs to transform. And that also means that the way we metabolize oxygen, the way we purify our system, the way food moves around, nutrition moves around through the body, all that is shifting. And what I'm seeing happening is that sacred geometrical form is coming right into the heart chakra area. And everybody in the audience, all of us need to know that each of the different organs of our body has a different relationship to mental and emotional bodies. So, for example, the ability to feel loved, nourished, protected, cared for comes from the breasts. This is what breasts do, and they're in this area. Lungs too, you know, because lungs bring the infinite, unbounded totality in to become isolated as part of the bound structure of the physiology, and then back again out to totality. So that flow from infinity to isolated back to infinity is ever expressed through the whole respiratory system. It is connection. All that connection to divinity is in this area. So the upgrade is taking place for this area of the body. And it's very interesting what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing it's like a kind of a little holy space is being created around the chest. And that holy space sets a foundation for deepest healing. All the respiratory tract, the lungs, the heart, the breasts, the back, the rhomboids, the arms, arms and hands, any nervous system functions in there, your deeper levels of being, taking a read on the nervous system in that area. Of course, also aspects of digestion, because the digestion's just below there, and that's where we've got this unfoldment of the full potential of all the areas in all the structures in the chest area. Include antidotes for the imbalances in that area. For example, when the body, any kind of like heartburn, anything like that is a rejection. It's like, no, I don't accept it. No, I don't accept it. But guess what? The breasts naturally are extremely receiving. They're very yielding. They're very adoring. It's like a mother who just loves that child absolutely no matter what. So right next to the area where the imbalance is also the solution. So what's happening is this beautiful form which is created is structuring pure integration of all the solutions already present in the imbalance, so that they come together and totality is formed. Our meeting yesterday ended with this really brilliant and amazing woman asking a question about, couldn't we as a group work together, form together to create some kind of, deep healing for mankind. And as I was thinking about her question this morning, and I did answer, I feel that I answered it fairly thoroughly yesterday, but as I was continuing to think about the question this morning, what I realized was within the question is the exact energy frequency of the solution. So the imbalance is that, people are falling into, cruel behavior on each other and damage to the environment and so forth. Can't we do something? Like, what can we do? And I realized that in that intention, that little tiny intention, what can we do to help? Is the energy frequency of doing. Is that compassion and a sense of capability that as a collective we do have the ability to create tremendous change in the relative field of creation, and the ability to apply that tenderest compassion and the intention for all good to everyone through the mechanics of organizing, structuring in an orderly fashion our awareness or attention so that all the pieces are in place that promote that good out into the creation. Basically, nobody wants to damage our nice world and nobody wants to hurt other people, really. Dramas. dramas do create the illusion that for some reason it would be good to kill somebody or something like that. So bringing this back, because I'm still seeing we've got this fabulous orderly structure which, by the way, folks, is integrating for everybody in different ways. I'm watching everybody's physiology right now, and this example I gave of it integrating into the chest area, and the other example of it integrating for the ancestors, those are just two forms of integration. But this is a tool. It's a law of nature. With consciousness, we can produce this form. It looks different to me from matrices. We've worked with matrices before, and those are these subtle forms made of the beams or streams of consciousness that form together in sacred geometrical shapes, where each node has a specific energetic quality, like forgiveness or compassion or showers of healing or whatever, different forms, but orderliness. This is different. This is more of an organic form. It's more of a life. It's like, how when you go down under the ocean and there are things that live down there that you can't tell, are they animals or are they plants? They're like, they have qualities of both, and sometimes, qualities in between. It's like that. This beautiful, incredible form, which is consistent and is continuing to be the overriding structure of today's webinar, is that we are in this. We are this beautiful swirling rick of a form. Rick meaning like a whirlpool. Like a whirlpool, it's got a whirlpool shape like this, but it's also got this big full round shape on the outside that's turning like that and turning like that. So like a big torus, And we already know that our astral bodies look like a torus. So everything is reflected at many levels. We need to get back to dramas, but something else is coming up that I want to share. And that is that yesterday, the ability of the matrix of creation to flow with a predominance of this law of nature that supports truth, supports transparency, supports honesty. It expanded and extended into the simultaneous parallel universes. And that's like having an internet. Remember when the internet first began, it linked together certain universities around the world, right? And then more people got in and more people got in. Well, it's kind of like that. We have this matrix of creation. We've been working with it on Earth. All of us have been getting to the point where we're fairly comfortable with our relationship, the relationship between our individuality and this grid of life, which is all around us, connects us to the trees and the squirrels and the air and the earth and everything. But it's moving into very, very subtle levels of creation now and allowing truth to flow. And what I'm seeing is that this beautiful torus-like form is a universal form which is used, think of it as kind of either advanced subtle hardware for our internet, or we could think of it as a very sophisticated software program which is gives us capabilities to function in ways that are more sophisticated, more powerful, more deeply healing than we have ever had access to before. We did it. Being did it. The mother of creation, using us as the antennas, did this beautiful, amazing thing. And it's a useful thing. It is very beautiful. And it's clearly useful. It is clearly useful. I'm asking, what's the best way for us to utilize this new technology? Besides that, it is literally speaking to every level of everyone's physiology, every level of the physical body. So from organs to tissues to cells to subcellular to molecular to atomic to subatomic layers of subatomic to quantum level, that it's finding its own nature there. It's reflecting its own nature. But also from dense to subtler to subtler to subtler to subtler. It's finding its own nature there. It's working its way with all the chakras. So orderliness is being created, or it's overlaying a quality of orderliness in the manifest structure of who and what we are, which hasn't up till this point been present. Or I should say, I said not up to this point, but I was wrong about that. Yes, there are definitely very high souls who have been on earth, who've had this level of orderliness, orderly structure in their beings, but they have been considered unusual. And we don't want to be really considered unusual too much, because who wants to stand out in a crowd and then become the object of, people thinking that we're weird? So we have the freedom to integrate. We have the freedom to use the orderliness of this structure in such a way as to promote all good in creation without confusing anyone. So that's just being structured right now. I'm seeing a change in the matrix of creation as a byproduct of the presence of this torus form. Thank you. Thank you. It's grounding. The torus form is grounding. It's connecting into the center of Mother Earth. Mother Earth's energy field, of course, also looks the same way. It's like a birth. It's like we're looking at a birth of a being, a form of energy structure of which all of us are a part. And what we want to do, we have an intention. What is being suggested here, that it's okay to offer intention. So the intention is, how can I best serve? And the answer is, we choose how to best serve. We choose the areas that most need service. So we do need to deal with, because we're talking about mental and emotional bodies and how do we not make trouble for our own lives, we need to clear dramas. So dramas are a combination of fear, a desire for an experience which is really rich, one of those things that's so beautiful it makes you cry. Ego, there's some ego in there, because self-identification and, oh, my life is so important, drama. And the freedom, there's that freedom to stray off of the path of evolution long enough to see where is the center of the path. Because if you're in the very, very center, sometimes it's like a fish underwater who doesn't really know what wet is, because everywhere is wet. So what's wet? So there's that freedom to stray off. And that's what dramas are, those points where one strays off a little bit and then gets snapped back on again. It was a big revelation for me when I discovered that dramas as such could be cleared from the system, because they're kind of complex forms. And yet it is so liberating to release them from the being, because dramas tend to be really, they drag life down, they slow things up. So what we're doing is I'm just offering that suggestion that dramas could be cleared, and how complete could the clearing be with the use of this collective intention of all of us. It's a really tall order. We live next to a high school. That's a drama breeding ground. The answer that's coming back is that the dramas only come up when the ability to self-love is not sufficient enough to support the sense, inner ability to completely self-nourish, self-satisfy, self-support. That's what causes dramas to come up. Then a drama needs to be created in order to feel like life was important. So that ability to self-love. Everybody can refer to, I have got a video on an exercise for self-love. But in this webinar, we've gone far, far beyond that. So what we're doing is we're using that torus shape, this beautiful, birthed, orderly, gorgeous structure, massive structure, to fold like an antenna back into the source of creation, completely resonating with the function of self-acknowledgement, self-love, self-validation, self-security, self-protection. Okay, that was good. So as that energy folded into the source of creation, what came back was forms of sparkling light, kind of, this is what it looked like anyway, coming back through that torus form to activate, to open it up, to wake it up. Like a flower, it grows. Oh, that's really neat. Okay, so each one of us is positioned so that we're at the apex, we're at the innermost point. Each one of us can. This is the nature of such a multidimensional structure, is each one of us can have the most important spot all at the same time. It's an honor to be here with all of you. Think of it like a lotus, like it's the heart of the lotus, or this lotus heart of the mother of the universe. That reality, manifest reality, is all the different petals. And each petal is a different story, is a different set of laws of nature dominating. And if we're out at the point of one of the petals and we're saying, wow, I like this, but I don't really like it very much, I think it could be improved, then what we do is we go in to the center, and from the center, choose a different petal. And as this is a technology, but it happens only when the structure is orderly like this. I mean, I knew this was happening. I have to tell you guys, this is very exciting for me because I have seen this functioning for some time, actually, a few years, but I hadn't understood the mechanics of it as deeply as it's being understood today by the virtue of all of us being together doing this, so that it could be consistent, so that we could consistently utilize this technology. Everybody holds a kind of a sacred connection to the center of the heart of the lotus. Each of us possesses that. So we find the very, 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 very center. And the center is the sweetest spot. It's the spot where you feel so fulfilled, so complete, so happy, so satisfied, so connected to everybody else and connected to the source of creation. That it's like, who wants to ever leave that? Who wants to go out and bother with the petals? It's like the center of the heart of the lotus is so lovely. But it's good to stay there long enough to soak in that, to stabilize that, and to recognize energetically that key that's like the key to the door to that inner chamber. It's always accessible. And then from there, the petals, not only already do petals exist, but we can grow petals, we can grow specific petals. So what do we want to grow? I'm just asking infinity. I already know that we want to grow a life, a quality of life on earth, which is much higher than what's been experienced in the past. We want to grow levels of health for the body. But these zillions of lotus hearts all through and through the system, that have been established all through and through the system, are supportive of highest health for the physiology. So I expect that all of us are going to start experiencing a big upgrade in health as a result of this. It's not just a medicine, it's also a mechanism for manifestation. So the next thing is getting rid of or eliminating structures in the system. And since we're talking about mental and emotional bodies, the kind of deep-seated beliefs that sit like under the surface, in the subconscious and unconscious levels of the mind. I'm also looking at karma. I found something. Okay. There is a kind of a dark, insidious energy that sits in various locations in the collective. And all the work that we've done up till now in this webinar has been preparatory for us to actually take on something really big. And we were actually aiming toward this yesterday, and we almost completely got there, and we kind of nudged at it a little bit, but we didn't really get it. But today we got it. So we're looking at this dark energy. I first came across it a couple of weeks ago, just to give you guys a feel for what we're onto here. I was watching someone who is one of the truth speakers. You know, they're people who, you know, are truth tellers or whatever, talking about politics and the assassination of Princess Diana. And he made reference to something called the Mother of Darkness Castle in Belgium. And I thought, oh dear, that sounds like, I do a lot of locational healings, right? So I thought, oh, well, maybe I better go check that out and just see what's there and what needs to be healed and what needs to be purified. So I went there. The energy there was so dark. It was so dark. I went in, I got a little taste of it, and I came back out, and you know, for about a day I was like, wow, can I shake this? Because it was so dark. But it wasn't because the castle itself was so dark. It was because the castle represented a point in creation that was standing as a little holding ground for a much bigger, more abstract, dark energy, which was abstract enough and difficult enough to access that it seems kind of creepy and scary from a human point of view. How does one deal with something like that? That darkness is a lack of coordination between ourself and in what we could call environmental structures, but really structures at deeper levels of self. So I'm just looking at it. And what I'm seeing is we bump into this energy around the spirit and causal level of the physiology. Nothing dark can ever touch the field of pure being, because pure being is just absolute, pure, absolute. There's nothing. Brahman consumes everything. So what we're dealing with here is still something in what we would think of as the manifest levels of creation, which means it has some incompletion in it. It has some incompletion to it. And what I'm doing is I'm just offering the petal, the lotus petal, that allows all of us to restructure. Oh, here it goes. I can feel the energy starting to churn now. We can restructure what we think of as our whole universe, not just, oh, I'm in the car and I'm driving and I want to be somewhere else or something like that, but the whole universe is influenced because this energy is at such a deep level. The whole universe is influenced by it. And what I'm seeing is the light of pure source of creation light moving into where that dark Mother of Darkness castle energy is. And it's just mixing in that that sort of blissful mix where you have the negativity and the positivity together in such a degree as to create such a quality of blissfulness in it. Blissful is the best word I'm finding to use right now, guys. And sorry, I don't really think it's like the perfect word, but it's the one that I found. So thank you for bearing with me as we do that, as we move that, as we are moving that, and we are moving it. And you know, when the energy moves like this, it is so satisfying. It has such a yummy, incredible, you know, causing our bodies to produce endorphins and dopamine and serotonin, that kind of effect physically. But at the same time, it's also creating that effect in the larger sphere of the environment. So it's like our little heart of the lotus is now blossoming into a really big, somebody's coming in, ooh. Anyway, it's blossoming into a form which is extremely beautiful. Oh, question, thank you. Great, great, thank you. Somebody asked some questions coming in. We'll address those in just a second while we finish this. As this glorious flower, I take a lot of lotus pictures because we have a little pond in back of our house with lotuses in it, and they're really pretty. So anyway, using that analogy today, the point is that it all offers back to the source of creation. The more beautiful it becomes, the more satiating it becomes, the more luscious this experience becomes, the more necessary it is that we're offering it at the feet of the divine and just saying, this is you, this is you, this is you, this is you. It is our privilege, honor, and joy to be your reflection and to experience what it's like to be in the human body and to be having this experience and to be given this gift of being this aspect of divinity. Super amazing, super beautiful. And of course, when you drop that experience into infinity, in a sense, it goes into non-manifest level of expression, but that's okay because it also ripples out infinitely. And the change which has taken place in our physiologies, and I have to say huge healings, physical healings just took place for everybody in the group with this big thing that just happened, that we get to keep that. We get to keep the memory, how we created it, how it made us feel, all the healing that took place in our physiologies along with it, and the ability to go back and recreate it anytime we wish. And we have the recording too, so we can redo this one or we can do new ones. It's an experience I wouldn't have had if it hadn't been for you. And I just want to say how grateful I am for that, because that's huge. For me, that's huge. That's just huge. Thank you.